When it comes to science experiments, there are some things that we just don't want to know. Today, we're counting down 5 banned experiments that actually happened. You won't believe how insane these really are. So let's get into it. Number 5, Project Sunshine. Let's start with an experiment that didn't happen too long ago. It was conducted by none other than the United States military. The project took place in the late 1960s and involved placing actual soldiers inside of a simulated underground fallout shelter. The point was to study what would happen to human beings if they were trapped underground for years at a time. But why? Well, at the time, the US government was worried about a possible nuclear attack from the Soviet Union. As such, they wanted to figure out how their personnel would cope if they had to stay in a bunker for a very long period of time. There was just one problem. The volunteers who took part in this experiment suffered from severe psychological breakdowns. In fact, after only 2 weeks, they were all suffering from depression, anxiety, and paranoia. Of course, this is understandable given the circumstances. But when the researchers tried to continue the experiment, the soldiers staged a riot. They refused to cooperate, until they were eventually given sleeping pills and forcibly removed from the facility. After this incident, the military was forced to end the project. However, it did teach them a valuable lesson. If they ever had to put their soldiers into a bunker, they now knew that morale would likely be very low and keeping everyone calm would be next to impossible. Number 4, monster plants. Did you know that there is a secret facility out there where scientists are creating new plants by combining DNA from various animals? If not, then prepare to get your mind blown, because this is actually a reality. This facility is located in Hawaii and is known as the Danforth Center. Scientists here have created a variety of strange plants by splicing together genes from different species. One example is a tobacco plant that glows red. This was done by inserting the gene for red fluorescence into the plant's DNA. Another example is a petunia that has been engineered to produce a purple pigment. But perhaps the most bizarre plant that has been created at the Danforth Center is the carnivorous tomato plant. As you can probably guess, this plant is a hybrid between a tomato plant and a carnivorous plant, like a Venus flytrap. The result is a plant that can actually eat small insects. Scientists say that this was done for no other reason than to prove that it could be done. But do you think there is more to this experiment than meets the eye? Perhaps one day we will find out. For now, though, we can marvel at the fact that scientists have successfully created a plant that can digest small animals. No. 3. Bad monkey? Now let's move on to another creepy experiment that was conducted by the United States military. This one took place during the Vietnam War and involved giving American soldiers LSD. The idea was to see what would happen if enemy soldiers used hallucinogenic drugs against them. And boy, were the results interesting. The soldiers who were given LSD experienced a variety of symptoms, including hallucinations, paranoia, and psychosis. Some of them even went on violent rampages, attacking other soldiers and bystanders alike. Of course, this caused quite a stir among the general public when news of the experiments got out. Many people were outraged that the US military would even consider such a thing. But the truth is that this was just one of many unethical experiments that were conducted on unsuspecting soldiers during the war. Things like biological warfare testing, radiation poisoning experiments, and even torture were all commonplace. It wasn't until after the war that many of these experiments were finally exposed. The public outcry forced the government to put an end to them. However, the damage had already been done, and many of the soldiers who were experimented on suffered from lifelong health problems as a result. Number 2. Nazi vampire experiments. Let us travel back in time to Nazi Germany, where scientists were conducting all sorts of vile experiments on humans. One of the most disturbing was their so-called vampire experiments, which involved infecting prisoners with blood-borne diseases like syphilis and then transfusing their blood into healthy individuals. The goal was to try and create a vaccine for these diseases, but needless to say, this was done in a very inhumane way. The prisoners who were infected often died horrible deaths as the scientists watched on, taking notes and collecting data. And even those who survived the initial infection were never truly the same again. Many of them suffered from long-term health complications as a result of the experiments. Even though these experiments were eventually stopped, they left a dark stain on the history of medical science. In fact, it wasn't until decades later that the full extent of the Nazis' horrific experiments was revealed. And even today, Many people are still unaware of the atrocities that were committed in the name of medical science. No one. 1. MK Ultra. Last but certainly not least, we have MK Ultra, one of the most infamous top-secret projects in history. MK Ultra was a CIA program that was started in the early 1950s, and it involved experimenting on unwitting citizens with mind-altering drugs like LSD. The goal was to find a drug that could be used as a form of chemical warfare, something that could incapacitate enemy agents or even entire populations. But as you might imagine, this led to some very unexpected and often disturbing results. Many of the subjects of MK Ultra experiments were given high doses of LSD without their knowledge or consent. Some of them were even given the drug multiple times without ever being told what was happening to them. The results were often terrifying as the subjects experienced flashbacks, memory loss, paranoia, and even psychotic breaks. But despite the horrific nature of these experiments, they were kept secret for decades. It wasn't until the 1970s that the Church Committee, a group of U.S. senators, began to investigate the CIA, and what they found was so shocking that they made headlines around the world. For the first time, people learned about the extent of MK Ultra and the lengths that the CIA had gone to in order to keep their experiments hidden. In the years since then, more information has come to light, and we have learned just how dark and disturbing these experiments really were. But even today, there are still many unanswered questions surrounding MK Ultra, and many people believe that the CIA is still hiding information about this top-secret project. Well, that wraps up our list of 5 banned experiments that actually happened. Do you know of any others that should have been included? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, be sure to give this video a thumbs up for more insane science videos. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys next time.